the first thing that we have to do for QuickBooks is we have to go through and make a folder under your account and get all of the data files that were already created for the company ready for you to use. So that's going to be the first step that we need to do right now. So you want to click on your computer drive, and when you click on that, this should come up where you get an option to see all of the documents. Does that make sense what I'm clicking on? If you go to computer, folder, this comes up. Now, what you need to do is you need to, under your account, so on the left-hand side, you're going to go under your H drive. Okay? What you need to do under your H drive is make a new folder, and let's call it QuickBooks. If you want to put it in a folder that you already have made for this year's grade, feel free to do that. But I just want to make sure that you have a folder called QuickBooks. Okay, now the next thing that I need you to do is we actually have to copy some stuff. So I'm actually going to go under my start window and go to computer, and I'm going to have two windows up. Does that make sense? Do you see I have two of them? This is the second one I launched and the other one. It's going to make your life a lot easier if you go to start in computer and have two windows up. And again, if you want them to be side by side, click and drag it to the left side. Now, I am on one side here going to have my QuickBooks folder open, except I just opened the wrong one. So my folder is called QuickBooks Spring 2013 because I have different QuickBooks folders that I need to use. Now, in the other window, you need to go under Student Shared, that S drive. Then you're going to go to SHS. Then you're going to go to Classes. Then you're going to go to Grassel. Guess where you're going to go next? Accounting. And then you should have a folder that says QuickBook Files. Go ahead and open that folder. And you should see a series of files. You need to highlight all of those. And then you need to put it under your QuickBooks file on the left, and you're going to copy it over. You can highlight all of them at once and do them all at once. You don't have to drag them individually. I just highlighted them, all of them. Look at, yeah, I know, it's all right, don't worry about it. All I'm doing is I highlight all of them, top to bottom, and then I'm copying over to QuickBooks 2013. Somebody might be trying to do it at the same time. You should have 8 files that have pictures. Don't worry about the other ones that are just white pieces of paper. As long as you have 8 of them that have pictures, you are good to go. Okay? You can go ahead and close all of those windows now. Now, in QuickBooks, so you can close those windows, relaunch QuickBooks. You can maximize your screen now. What we need to do in QuickBooks is we actually have to go through and open up those files. Okay? Where are you going to open up that file from? But where's the file saved? Under your H drive, under that QuickBooks folder. Does that make sense? I can't have all of you going to that one spot where you copied it from because we all can't have that QuickBooks file open and manipulate at the same time. So you are going to be doing all of your work on those files right from that QuickBooks folder you created under your account. Does that make sense? Now, you can only do QuickBooks where? In this room. The software is not loaded anywhere else in the building. So you have to do it here. You can't do QuickBooks at home. It's not like Apply. It's not based on the internet. If you miss a day, you are going to have to schedule a time to come back in to get it caught up. Okay? So, your screen looks a little bit different than mine because this is the first time you've launched the program, but you're going to go ahead and click on Open a Company. I think that's one of the options, right? Open an existing company, yes. And then it's going to go through and it should give you a screen that looks like this, right? We match now? Okay. And we're going to open a company file. We're going to click on Next. And then you need to go under your account, under that folder. And now I need to remember the name of the file we're supposed to open up. Ocala. Ocala Lawn and Garden. Do you notice when we go to look at it this way? Oh, I don't have all the white ones, but you have the white ones. We just need to click on the one with the image. Ocala Lawn and Garden. Yep. Okay. QuickBooks is going through. Now, you will know the name of the business that you are using by, I need to not mix them, right here, Ocala Lawn and Garden. Do you see that for those of you that launched properly?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're going to go there. I'm going to come up and help troubleshoot a couple people right now. All right. What I'm going to do right now is I would like to have your eyes up here, and we're just going to talk about the QuickBooks layout right now. What I want you to notice is different companies are going to have different screen setups based on the type of company and what they do. When we look right here, we are going to see on our QuickBooks screen that is actually divided into two halves. The top part right up here is going to be considered our vendors, and then this bottom part right here is going to be our customers. It's hard to see on the overhead projector, but there really is a white line. If you look at your screen, do you see the white line that divides the two halves?
Yep.
Okay. And then we also have a white line right over here that's going to deal with our currency, correct? Okay. Now, this whole thing is developed from a workflow. Okay. You will notice that you have arrows that kind of direct what's going to happen. So, depending on the type of business we have, you will actually see more or less options on here, and all has to do with the setup of how you start QuickBooks. Now, we're going to be going through and redoing some problems that we originally did in Applia or even did on paper, because I want you to see now how you can actually use it on an electronic software. I don't like to cheat to the electronic software first, because if you don't understand debits and credits, Applia or QuickBooks is just going to do it for you, but you need to understand why you have two accounts and why the two go together. Okay? When we do the workflow, you can see the first thing that we have here is actually a sales order. So basically a sales order is going to mean a customer, and we know it's customer because it's on the bottom half, a customer has approached us and said, I want to buy something from you. Okay? So that sales order, we're going to enter in here. Let's say that Cody Plaster, you wanted to buy something from my business, so I'm going to enter that sales order. Once I go through and enter that sales order, the first thing I have to do is, on the top, it's actually going to have us go through and enter a bill, and then I'd pay my bill. Why would I have to enter a bill?
Yeah.
Do you think that sales order that I might have to go through and like buy gas or different things? Because look at the type of business we're on. Lawn and garden. So merchandising or service? Service business, right? So we don't necessarily have products, but I might need to go through and enter a bill or different things related to gas or different things that way. And the top part, enter bills, is going to be considered vendors. Vendors is accounts payable. Customers are accounts receivable. Vendors, liability, credit, normal balance. Customers, asset, debit, normal balance. Okay, all of that goes together. So we have a sales order. Somebody wants me to come and perform a sale or service. And then what I'm going to do through here is I'm going to go ahead and create that invoice, because oftentimes people will contact me and I'm going to say, all right, what would your bid be? So I'd actually create a bid here. And then we go through it there, and they would decide for us to do or not. And once that we decided to actually to do the work for them, we process the order, we give them the bill, then they pay it. Notice how it actually works through this way. After I receive a payment, the next thing I can do is actually give a receipt, and the receipt will generate automatically from QuickBooks. And then what I have to do next, record my deposit. The other things that we have as an option on our screen are different things that will come up. So different ones are going to, different companies that we open up that we're going to be doing with QuickBooks will have the different screens on here, and I want you to realize that. One of the things I want to do right now is when we go through and print and generate reports, every one of you is going to print and generate a report that's going to say Ocala Lawn Care. Now, I need to know it's yours, and you're not going to be able to write your name on it after it comes in, because I want to know when it comes out the printer. So we're actually going to go through and modify the company name a little bit so that way your name is on there. So to do that, let's go to Company and go to Company Information. Okay, and when company information comes out, it says Ocala Lawn and Garden. Guess what you're going to do after it? Put your name in there. First and last name. Now, what's the fiscal period? Do you see it right here? It tells us that Ocala Lawn and Garden is running a fiscal period. The first month in my fiscal period is November, and then your tax year is going to start in January. Why do they have this on here? Because actually QuickBooks will go through and generate reports to help businesses file their taxes if they have it set up correctly. So we can see that the fiscal period starts in November. That kind of makes sense if you're a lawn care business, right? Especially in Wisconsin. Usually starting in November, you don't have much lawn care work to do, and then you have a chance to wrap up your books. So you can go ahead and click on OK there. And now you will notice in the very top of your screen, instead of it saying Ocala Lawn and Garden, it should say Ocala Lawn and Garden and then your name on it. Anytime you print reports now, those reports are going to have your name on it automatically, and that's very helpful when we go through and all of us are printing the same type of work. Okay. Now, your packet. These instructions, ready? I'll say it out loud for you. Now, the packet that you have was originally created for QuickBooks, I think, version 2005 or 2006. So it doesn't match exactly, but it's going to be close enough for us to be able to use the directions. Does that make sense? Some of the things will change a little bit on there, but most of it's going to be fine. So what you'll see on the very first page of your packet is that actually this is our mastery problem 4-5 from our textbook. And those are the transactions that you would have done. When you went through to complete this application problem on Applia, it's exactly the same journalizing transactions. We are just going to take this and then go into QuickBooks. Okay? So we are not doing that first. What we need to do is you're going to flip it over and we actually have to read some instructions. Okay? Instruction number 1 says copy and rename the data file. Well, guess what? We already did that. when we went through, copied all the files, we have them all under your folder. And so we already have all of the files there. Anytime I'm giving you another packet for another assignment that we're going to do in QuickBooks, it tells us to put XX to indicate your initials or code number. What I want you to do is really just add your name to it because it's going to help for printing out. So we're actually looking at instruction number 3 on page 3, and it says journalize the transaction completed during November of the current year. Use General Journal in your QuickBooks software to record transactions. Now, QuickBooks is not going to let us journalize November of the current year. Why? It's January right now. So what we are going to need to do, because QuickBooks realizes what today's date is, and it's going to go through and say, why would you do that? So we're actually going to need to do November of 2012. Okay, so just to give you that as a heads up. The other thing that QuickBooks does is it realizes when people use QuickBooks, they do it on a daily basis. They don't go back at a later point and go through and journalize a whole year at once. Every day they would open it up and actually put the transactions in. So when we go through to enter transactions from November, it's going to go through and say, hey, are you sure you want to do it on that date? And we just have to tell it a couple times that's what we want to do, and then life will be good. Okay, so instruction number 3 on page 3 says journalize the transaction completed in November of the current year. Use the General Journal in your QuickBooks software to record transactions. It does tell us to remember to enter source documents as necessary. It gives us our source document information: C check, M receipt, R sales invoice, S sales invoice, T calculator tape. So what we have to do is we actually have to get our journal open. And we go under Company and go under Make General Journal Entries. Okay. Now, this screen should look exactly like the screen on the bottom of page 3. Would you agree? Okay. So this is how we're going to journalize it. So on the bottom of page 3 it says, to make general journal entries from the company menu, click on Make General Journal Entries and this window will appear. So now on the top of page 4, what we have to do is we have to enter the first date of the transaction in the date box. Okay? You can also change the date by using the calendar button as explained in the software tip on the left. Okay? So we are going to need to key the transaction for November, and you can see that the screenshot on the top of the page says November 5th of 2005. We're not going to do this. So I'm going to click on the calendar, and I'm actually going to go back here to November, and I'm going to put in November 1st. You have to do this. Okay? If you don't make sure the date is right, because QuickBooks is going to say, well, why don't you want to do it today? It's trying to be helpful. Watch your dates. I've had a lot of students that have gone through and not switch their dates to the correct information, and then it will cause a lot of problems. Okay? Be careful. Okay? So, what it says is we need to key the transaction for November 1st as shown in figure 451. Okay, so if we look back on the bottom of the left page, it does show us what those transactions look like. How do I know what the transaction is? Page 1. First transaction reads, receive cash from owner as an investment, $5,500. So what I need to know is going to be, which accounts am I affecting? One of the things that's a little bit different about this packet is it goes through and talks a little bit about QuickBooks and talks a little bit there, but you remember the transactions are on the front side that we need to journalize. So what we need to do is we have to go through here on this window and we have to choose our 2 accounts. So we are going to receive cash from owner as an investment. Which account should go first? Cash. So if you click on that account title, account window, and click on the drop down, you can see that cash is listed there. How much for cash?
5,500.
So then I'm going to type right here 5,500. The next account is going to be Patrick Ocala Capital. Notice it automatically goes through and gives me a $5,500 credit. Why would it do that? Because it knows it has to balance. Okay. So, it put my $5,500 credit in there for me. Now, one of the things that we need to realize is I need to take this check mark off up here for adjusting entry. This is not an adjusting entry. Do you see that check mark on the top? That is not something that is in there for the example in the book, but that's a new software update from the old version of QuickBooks to the new ones. The other thing I have to get on there is going to be my source document. You're going to have to put the source document in the memo line for each one, and that's going to be R1. Okay. So the date of this transaction is November 1st of 2012. It is not an adjusting entry. It should be entry number 1. I have a debit for cash of $5,500 and I have a credit for cash of $5,500. Memo R1 for both of them. I'm going to go ahead and go save and new. Okay. When I went to save and new, please look at the date. What did it do? It changed it to today's date. Okay, I need to do the next journal transaction. Remember, I told you to go back to November of 2012. So I'm going to need to click on here and go to November of 2012. And what date am I doing? The 3rd, November 3rd. I know it's a Saturday. Don't worry about it. Okay. Notice, what about adjusting entry? It's unchecked because we unchecked it the last time. So we have to look at this transaction. Paid cash for supplies, $400, C1. What are your two accounts? Supplies and cash. So you have to figure out which one's being debited. Which one's being debited? Supplies for $400. My memo has got to be my source document, which is going to be C1. And then I'm going to credit cash $400. The other thing I want to point out that I did differently on this one is I went all the way across. For my account night, I did supplies, then I did $400, and then I typed the memo of C1 on the first one, and I went to the second line. It typed in C1 for me on that one also. I didn't have to type it twice. Okay. I'm going to show you that again. Okay. So first thing I have to do is I got to make sure I have the right date. I went to November 3rd. I'm going to do supplies, 400, and then I'm doing C1 here. And when I went to the next line, because I put C1 up there and I'm going to choose this account title here of cash, it actually put that in there for me. What do I want to do when this one's done? Save and new. So you can go ahead and do that. Now, you can go ahead and write on this packet here. I would like you to go through and journalize to the 11th. You can stop at the 11th. Okay?